Check, 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 check. We should be straight now. All right, we good. We good? We good? We good? We good? All right. There's been a lot going on. Sometimes you have to learn how to gray rock. Now, what does that mean? What is that? Lately, life has really been teaching me it is best not to react. It is best not to react, especially when you're angry, especially when emotions are running high. Seems like as I've gotten older, it's almost like life has been making sure to double back and make sure I get lessons that maybe I might have missed. And today, and maybe like the past week of my life, it has just been a life lesson in not reacting. And some of these topics that we're going to be talking about have to do with that. Kanye West essentially living out the plot of all of the lights in public really emphasizes, I don't want to just get out here and gossip like everybody else does. I want to have some sort of a meaning behind this. His reactions and maybe being a contrarian to some degree and how it affects things. We're good on volume. Make sure it's not too loud. I think we're good. Check, 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 check. We good? I'm glad I got these. Kanye West and what he's been doing. Wack 100 and this Big U situation. The Drake and Kendrick situation still continuing. What the president of the country is doing right now. I feel like a lot of this stuff really can be traced back to knowing when to react. I heard somebody say, oh, what's this? I'll take that. I will take that. I heard somebody say life is what happens to you, but it is mostly how you react. And in a lot of these topics and a lot lately in my life, it really feels like life has been teaching me you really have to pay attention to how you react. With this Drake and Kendrick situation, the main way that he lost was his reactions. If maybe he had not said, you rapping like you're trying to free the slaves, it's almost like it revealed a weak spot in many of his reactions. If he hadn't bragged about melting down Pharrell's chain, things like this, it would have protected his image more. In life, talking about, and what does gray rock mean? Gray rock, from what I understand, just means you kind of don't react. If someone's fishing for a reaction, you just don't give them one. Oh, this guy's somebody. This guy's somebody. That's all right. We warming up. But see, look, don't react, right? But yeah, he's got the Jordans on his backpack, on his back. She's got the Jordans on her back. Salute to her. What's her name? Temp921131. You got me. Out here trying to podcast when I should be trying to pay attention. From now on, we will make sure we're in a safe location before we discuss topics. But great rocking, man. There are so many people out there just fishing for reaction. That's what I really feel like a lot of these topics have in common. People who, for some reason or another, fish for a reaction. I've had people in my life recently purposely tried to get me to react. And when I have reacted to whatever they were doing, it was to my detriment. And I still had business dealings with these people. I still had certain things to do involving these people, and it made it really difficult. And it felt like I was trapped because on the business side, I still had to fulfill this agreement, but they were trying to get reactions. And so checking them, you know, it works to some degree, but the best reaction is just to remember that they are not that big of a deal. They are not that big of a deal. And I feel like if each person in these situations, including the Drake and Kendrick situation, if each person, I really hope I get some better clips because I don't want to be podcasting and putting out trash clips. I just ran out and got 76. Like we got to lock in for real. I feel like each person would have benefited from impulse control. So in my life, personally, I've been dealing with that. And if you're listening now or in the future and you are dealing with someone who is trying to weaponize your reactions, who's trying to clip farm, just remember it's a test in patience. And usually from what I've seen, things work out best when you take a second, step back, and think tactically. First things first, Kanye West, man. He always provides interesting things to talk about, but I really think from an artist perspective, like a creative perspective, and just a person perspective, what we're seeing happening with Kanye West, are they chasing me? Okay. What we're seeing happening with Kanye West should be a lesson to every artist out there about, like, he's given a masterclass in how to tank your career. And there will always be people who will agree with anything. So there are still people who, I listened to Bully. Sounded good. It did actually sound good. But I can't support, you know, I'm not going to support or say that I'm a Kanye West fan or any of that stuff. Because he's siding with the Nazi thing, you know. Someone's got a problem. I'll take it. All right, sorry, I couldn't just keep getting eliminated. That's crazy. What was I saying? Oh, Kanye West tripping. Whenever Kanye West has an album out, he usually does some sort of antic on Twitter to increase engagement. Oh man, I can't see my health bar right now. He usually does some sort of an antic to increase engagement. Yo, I gotta figure this out. He does some sort of an antic to increase engagement, and lately he's just been saluting Nazis and just saying any offensive thing that he could possibly think of, in order, it seems. And on his latest rants, he talks about how the Kardashians are involved in trafficking and all these things. And what's interesting about these is you can tell when he's just trying to say the most offensive thing ever, but he is revealing industry secrets. I don't know if this is a rollout. I hope that it's not. But if this is real, I'm seeing there might be some reasons behind the scenes. People are saying that it could be something about being unhappy with what a certain CEO at Adidas did, and he's doing this. He said that it's because he hasn't seen his kid in weeks. In the middle of this, he drops the video for the movie for his album Bully. And like I said, I don't like to get up here and gossip. What's the point of this? Like I said, with everything, you got to know when to gray rock. If this is really the things that, if these are really the things that are on his mind, and this is not a rollout, which I still kind of think it is, this is the worst possible reaction you can have. About his kids and how he doesn't have the authority over his kids and things like that. Supporting Nazis and doing all this stuff, man, it goes to a bit of a dark place. He's talking about he wants to get, I don't know, man. This industry stuff is weird. Talking about he wants to get his daughter on a song with Diddy, or it's already done. Like, I think all of these industry artists are weirdos, but it's strange to me that Kanye West is able to just do all of this kind of unchecked. And it's messy. It's very messy. But young fathers out there, young parents out there, realize this. You should not try to be an edgelord on social media and wild out at the same time thinking that you're going to get more access to your family. It's not going to work, man. Something is afoot. Are they under the ground? They are. I'll bite. Yo, I might have to cut this off because I'm playing so bad. I'm playing so badly that it's like I can't even. I'm playing pretty bad. That's all. When I'm recording, it just ends up being horrible. We're at least gonna try to get to like number 4 or 5 at some point. Like we have to. But this is a crash course in how to make yourself look unstable and lose access to your family, and to tarnish your career. And I really believe that in Kanye's head, all publicity is still good publicity. And this is something else I noticed with this online stuff that is kind of a trend, which is the 30 and up crowd, the 40 and up crowd is clout chasing more than the youth. It's like they all think, I'm trying not to be, what you call it, ageist. But as time passes, some of the reason why we have to gray rock out here is because the OGs have failed us and they really don't have like common sense or manners or emotional intelligence. And so a lot of us end up having to like can you imagine logging online and seeing this circus? If your parent is a famous celebrity, it's like it seems like we are living in a time where the older generation is more lost than ever. And I think we need more voices to speak up. That's kind of why I'm doing this, because I'm listening to the podcast thing. It's like all these OGs, man, we're going to talk about it. I'm a Joe Budden podcast fan. It's like all these OGs are trying so hard to cosplay as ignorant young people. And they still want to hate on what young people are doing, but they try their hardest just to seem as ignorant as possible. It's so cringe. I have been a long time listener. Speaking of, we move in topics. Prayers up for Kanye West, and I don't know if it's a roll. It was a rollout. I mean, but the things that he has said and done have made me not. I can't like rock with his music anymore. As a father, I can't rock with that. Even if he's saying what he's saying, the way he's going about it is gonna hurt your kids. So it's like, what are we doing? I don't understand why people just stand by and don't say anything about this stuff. Look, we'll talk about the Trump thing for half a second. He's talking about dismantling the Department of Education. We'll get into that in a minute. But as far as the Joe Budden podcast thing, I'm just noticing a trend of OGs trying really, really hard to seem ignorant, and it's horrible, man. We need people with sense. We need people with sense. The Joe Budden podcast, lately, it has been this thing on there. Hey, look at this guy. Oops. I don't want to do that, actually. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't agree with that. The Joe Budden podcast, man, lately it has been rough to listen to it, and Joe has always been interesting to listen to because you have to know you're listening to a narcissist. You have to know that. You have to know that you are listening to a narcissist. You have to know that you're listening to somebody who's not wrapped all the way tight. You have to know that going into it. Or you won't have any type of enjoyment from this podcast experience. But lately, it's been feeling kind of forced a bit. And what do I mean by that? Usually like what we all started listening to, it was Joe, Rory, and Mom, and they would just talk passionately about hip-hop. And there would be this competition to see who could be the funniest. Since they split up, it was good. Ish, Ice, that's the crew. Flip was the more recent addition. And the vibe of the podcast, it's like when your favorite show becomes aware of itself. Like if you start out watching SpongeBob, it was funny because SpongeBob would be in real life situations and have kind of realistic reactions. It was just a cartoon. Or sometimes he would have over-exaggerated reactions, but he wasn't going around, oh, are you kidding me? It better not disconnect. Oh. I was about to say it better not disconnect. Anyway, with the Joe Budden podcast, it feels like when your favorite show becomes aware of itself, and instead of just regular banter, it feels like they're chasing the outrage almost. Like they're really trying their hardest to go for the most offensive topics, the most offensive jokes they could possibly think of. And after a while, it gets to wear thin on my nerves. I can't listen to that all the time. It's weird. Some of the things that they sit up there and laugh at, it's like I've been leaving comments. I've been trying to, like, bruh, this is too dark, man. And not dark in a funny way. Like Anthony Jeselnik makes dark comedy in a funny way. But this is just like, yo, y'all are just going for the lowest hanging fruit. Always, they have a female host named Mel. And this is as a fan. As a fan of this, I'm talking about. I listen now. I'm not a Patreon guy, but I listen to this. I've been listening to Joe Budden's music since back in Def Jam Vendetta days, where he was a pickable character. All right. Walk with me. Shoot. Is somebody in the water? Yes, it is. I don't want any smoke though because I have not been doing good so far. But it just seems to be, and this Trump topic ties into it too. It just seems like a race to be the worst possible person. Some of this stuff that Trump is doing, it's like, yo, okay, remove it. This whole anti-DEI thing that people are tripping off of. The concept of DEI that they're trying to say is black people, non-white people have jobs, and it's ruining the workplace because. It's ruining the workplace because. Oh, great. It's ruining the workplace because people who are because of their race. But it's like that's ridiculous because. Is this? That's ridiculous because the idea is that for a very, very long time, it was only white males allowed to have advantages. Matter of fact, the planes that crashed and all that, It wasn't us flying them. Women couldn't get jobs, and so initiatives were put in place to make sure that it wasn't just white males getting hired. And this place is so twisted up, and this older generation is so cooked that somehow they've gotten confused about that. As far as politics, I don't even label this as politics. I label this as just human stuff. And we are seeing, honestly, what I think is the resurgence of the hatred and craziness of pre-Civil War America. It was passed down at the dinner table, and now it's normal. And these people, mainstreamers, I mean, that could be white, black, purple, whatever. 60 years ago, segregation was legal, and they were sneering and bullying people and targeting people because of what they look like. And they just got older and had kids, and some of them got government jobs. And we are seeing, like, there was never no mass therapy. You know, there was never an initiative to heal all that craziness. It was only 60 years ago. So now look, they're bullying people. They're doing whatever they can to insult and degrade and demean. And now more than ever, I think that, like I said before, we have to have emotional control. Sometimes you got to gray rocket. Right now, they're introducing legislation that in some sort of a way enables segregation in government jobs in some kind of a way. And my opinion as a black man is, all right, just leave us alone then. Leave us alone. We'll build another Tulsa. Just don't bomb it this time, you know? But my opinion is, don't react. They want us protesting out in the street so they can do martial law and they can blame us. Like, that's clearly what it is. This isn't politics. This is just people hate us. They hate us. In my opinion, it is ridiculous that all these grown folks are trying so hard to just be mean and nasty to people. That so many people, I'm like, yo, what? Listening to these podcasts and watching politics, I'm like, yo, what are y'all teaching y'all kids? Like, are y'all teaching y'all kids that if somebody is hurting or doesn't have enough, that you should insult them and kick them when they're down? You're teaching your kids that. How are you walking outside? I'm watching these news pundits and these podcasters get on these cameras and get in front of these microphones and just spew the most self-serving, narcissistic drivel. And people lap it up. And it's just crazy to me. It's crazy to me. So I hope that we see a resurgence because of this ignorance. I hope we see a resurgence of critical thinking, you know. I do. I hope we see more people thinking. I hope we see less people treating podcasts as opportunities to dry snitch and gossip. This is going to lead me into the last topic before I close this thing out. I really hope that the OGs actually start OGing. I'm going to tune into some more Joe Budden podcast episodes to see if they get out of this slump. And I'm not tuning into politics. As far as anyone in my life who is purposely pushing buttons, I am gray rocking that situation until I can get out of it. And I advise you to do the same. But in the meantime, in between time, the last topic would be this Big U and Wack 100 situation. And I'm going to handle this very delicately because these are open cases for some of these people, but it is this situation with the West Coast where they just get online, and not all, but these podcasters, man, the art of podcasting has been butchered. That's the real problem. As somebody who studied broadcasting in college and had a radio station, you're supposed to be providing entertainment and content or informing people of stuff, providing news. And again, this whole race to the bottom for this whole like, we just gonna try to be mean and nasty as possible. It's affected the podcast space. And one thing that's happened is these former street dudes, I'm not gonna say any names, but these former street dudes, or some would call it active street dudes, they get on these microphones and just dry snitch, man. They talk about crimes, they talk about who, what, when, where, how, and then they turn around And it be people who don't be in street situations. Like, I thank God I'm not in those kind of situations, but let me stop. But it's supposed to be, it's horrible, but omerta is supposed to be a code of silence, meaning you try not to talk. And what these people will do is they will claim to be down with the culture, or they will use street culture for content. They'll use it for content. And then turn around and accuse everyone else of being in violation. That's crazy. He ran in hype. They'll accuse everyone else of being in violation while telling you things that you would not know at all if they hadn't mentioned it. This situation is crazy. This Wack 100 situation is crazy because there are so many people involved who are getting online, calling people rats and snitches and all this stuff. And I'm a civilian current. I'm a civilian in my life. You talked to me a couple years ago, they might have said a couple things about me, but I'm not going to say if those things were true. But I know that no real street individual that I was around, me specifically, I'm not going to the internet. I'm not recording phone conversations. Like, what are we doing? The problem is a lot of people who have never been around any, and I'm not glorifying this, but it's true. There's a lot of people who have never been in situations where you might have to hold some information and not say it. And so they watch these people cosplaying as street individuals, which again, I don't condone because it destroys communities. They make money off of it, but when it comes to them, it just doesn't apply to them. They'll claim to be street individuals, but they will dry snitch and dry snitch and dry snitch. Now, there's another side of this conversation that needs to be talked about. You know, I'm not saying any names. There are people also who are affecting communities. There are people who are destroying communities out here. As someone who was allegedly accused of being the leader of something that I was not, we were a like-minded group of individuals. But I've seen firsthand how your crew clashing with another crew turns into some anti-black, almost KKK vibes. How trying to get out of the 9-to-5 system becomes doing things that hurt the community. I've seen it firsthand. And I'm not going to sit up here and act like brotherhood is an excuse for it, man. It's not an excuse for it. That has to be addressed too. There are Nipsey Hussle, an artist who really taught me a lot of things. He should still be here. And without saying any names or anything like that, I feel that if there was anyone that had anything to do with that situation, there should be justice done. Now, I'm not saying, listen, I'm not like these podcasters out here. You're not going to hear me just telling it all, saying it all. I'm not doing that. This ain't Trap Lord Ross, which is disgusting, by the way. And the tourists, I know, the tourists are going to find some way to hate. That's what they do. But I'm going to say what I say. Justice needs to be done. And that street stuff, that gets in the way of justice being done. Quite a lot. All right. That's the end for me. I just wanted to touch base. Sometimes you got to gray rocket, man. Sometimes you got to know how not to react. Sometimes the best reaction is no reaction. Sometimes the best reaction is quietly moving your feet and getting yourself to a better situation when you can. All right. Peace and love. I'm getting back to the studio. I obviously need to practice on this, so we might, I don't know if we even going to be playing this next time. To the men out there, emotional control is incredibly important. Incredibly important. So guard your emotions and do not crash out. To the women out there, same thing. Guard your emotions. Do not crash out. Remember that we are all main characters in this movie called life. You know what I mean? So be kind to each other when you can. You know, there's so many people out here trying so hard to just be evil to each other. We need people who are trying to show love. So peace and love. I'll be back. You know, I don't know how often I'm gonna do these, but we'll see.